Emily stood at the edge of the dirt road, the Texas sun pressing down on her like a weight she could no longer carry. Dust clung to the hem of her faded dress, and her shoes were worn thin from weeks of walking. In her arms, her 5-year-old son Noah leaned quietly against her chest, too tired to ask for food, too hungry to complain. That silence hurt her more than his cries ever could. They had arrived at the ranch by chance, or fate. Emily wasn't sure which she believed in anymore. All she knew was that the smell of bread drifting through the air stopped her in her tracks. Fresh, warm bread, the kind she hadn't tasted since life had fallen apart. Her stomach twisted painfully, and she swallowed hard, fighting the shame rising in her throat. Once, she had been proud. She had worked, paid rent, laughed easily. But after her husband died in a highway accident outside Oklahoma City, everything unraveled. Hospital bills swallowed their savings. Jobs disappeared as fast as they came. Eventually, there was no apartment, no food, and no one left to ask for help. So she walked, from town to town, door to door, until she ended up here. The ranch house was modest but solid, its wooden porch shaded by a wide roof. A man stood near the fence, tall and broad-shouldered, wiping sweat from his brow after tending the horses. He looked up when he noticed her. His eyes were cautious, but not unkind. Emily hesitated. Every step forward felt like stripping away what little dignity she had left. Noah tightened his grip on her dress. She took a deep breath and walked toward the porch. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, her voice barely steady. "I can work, clean, cook, anything." She paused, her lips trembling. "We just need some bread." The rancher studied her closely. He noticed the way she stood straight despite exhaustion, how she met his eyes instead of looking down. He noticed the child, too thin, too quiet. Something shifted in his chest. "My name's Jacob," he said slowly. "You two look like you've been on the road a long time." Emily nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak again. Jacob glanced toward the house, then back at them. He had known hunger once. Real hunger. The kind that eats away at your pride before it touches your body. He remembered a stranger who had fed him without asking for anything in return, and how that single act had changed his life. He opened the door and stepped aside. "Keep your pride," Jacob said firmly. "I'll feed you both." Emily froze. She hadn't expected kindness without conditions. Her knees almost gave out as the words sank in. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back. Noah peeked around her, curiosity replacing fear. "Please," Jacob added gently. "Come inside." As Emily crossed the threshold, she didn't know it yet, but this moment would mark the end of their running, and the beginning of something neither of them had dared to hope for. Inside the ranch house, the air was warm and heavy with the smell of fresh bread and brewed coffee. Emily paused just past the doorway, unsure where to stand, as if stepping too far might break the kindness she'd been given. The wooden floors creaked softly beneath her tired feet. Noah's eyes widened at the sight of the table set near the window, sunlight spilling across it like a promise. "Sit," Jacob said kindly, pulling out a chair for Noah first. The boy climbed onto it without hesitation. Hunger had finally won over fear. Jacob moved with quiet purpose. He sliced thick pieces of bread, spread butter across them, and placed a bowl of stew between them. Emily watched his hands, rough and steady, and felt something in her chest loosen. She couldn't remember the last time someone had prepared a meal just for them. "Go on," Jacob said, noticing her hesitation. "It'll get cold." Emily nodded and took a small bite. The warmth filled her mouth, then her chest. She chewed slowly, afraid it might vanish if she rushed. Across from her, Noah ate eagerly, a soft smile spreading across his face. That smile nearly broke her. "I don't know how to thank you," Emily whispered. Jacob waved it off. "You don't need to. People help people. That's how it should be." As Noah finished his second slice of bread, Jacob poured him a glass of milk. Emily felt tears sting her eyes again. She turned away, pretending to focus on her food, but the weight of weeks of fear and hunger pressed down on her all at once. After the meal, Emily stood up quickly. "Let me wash the dishes," she said, urgency in her voice. "Please. I need to do something." Jacob studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right." At the sink, warm water ran over Emily's hands. For the first time in months, the simple act of cleaning felt grounding, normal. Jacob leaned against the counter, giving her space but staying close. "You passing through?" he asked. "I was," Emily replied softly. "I didn't plan to stop anywhere. I just wanted my son to eat." Jacob looked toward Noah, now yawning at the table. "You can stay a few days," he said. "Get some rest. There's a spare room." Emily turned to him, startled. "I couldn't." "You could," Jacob interrupted gently. "No strings." Silence settled between them. Emily searched his face for judgment, for expectation. She found none. "My husband died last year," she said quietly, the words heavy. After that, everything fell apart. Jacob didn't rush her. He simply listened. When she finished, he nodded once, as if honoring her story. "Then you've carried enough," he said. "For now, let me carry a little of it." That night, as Emily tucked Noah into a clean bed for the first time in weeks, she realized something had shifted. This wasn't just food or shelter. It was safety. And safety, she understood, could be the first step back to hope. Morning arrived quietly at the ranch. Soft sunlight slipped through the curtains, warming the small guest room where Emily slept. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she heard Noah's gentle breathing beside her, steady and calm, and realized something remarkable: he was sleeping without hunger twisting his dreams. Emily rose carefully and stepped into the hallway. The house smelled of coffee and fresh air. Through the window, she saw Jacob already outside, moving across the land with practiced ease. Horses shifted in their stalls, and the wide Texas sky stretched endlessly above them. It was peaceful in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She dressed quickly and joined him outside. "Good morning," she said, unsure if she was overstepping. Jacob looked up and smiled. "Morning. Hope you slept all right." "We did," Emily replied. "Better than we have in weeks." She watched as he repaired a loose fence rail, his movements confident but unhurried. Without asking, she picked up a hammer nearby and held the plank steady. Jacob paused, then nodded his thanks. They worked in silence for a while, the rhythm of small tasks easing the tension between them. Later, Emily helped prepare breakfast while Noah sat at the table drawing with a pencil Jacob had given him. Laughter filled the kitchen when Noah proudly showed off his crooked ranch house sketch. Jacob laughed too, a sound that surprised even him. The house hadn't known laughter in a long time. After breakfast, Jacob showed Emily the garden behind the barn. Tomatoes, beans, and herbs grew in neat rows. "I could use some help here," he said casually. "If you want." Emily nodded. "I'd like that." As they worked, Emily finally spoke of the things she'd kept locked away. She told him about losing her husband, about eviction notices and nights spent in shelters, about the fear of not being enough for her son. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. Jacob listened without interrupting, without trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. "I didn't come here looking for charity," Emily said quietly. "I just wanted to survive." Jacob wiped his hands on his jeans. "Surviving takes strength," he replied. "You've got plenty of it." The words stayed with her. Days passed, each one building gently on the last. Emily helped around the house, not because she was asked, but because she wanted to contribute. Jacob never treated her work like a debt. He made sure she understood that. One afternoon, Emily found herself standing on the porch, watching Noah chase chickens across the yard, his laughter echoing freely. The fear that had lived in her chest for so long had softened. In its place was something fragile but real: hope. Jacob joined her, leaning against the railing. "You're welcome to stay," he said simply. "As long as you need." Emily swallowed hard. She wasn't ready to answer. But for the first time in a long while, the road no longer called to her. The ranch was no longer just a place of rescue. It was becoming a place of belonging, and Emily felt, deep down, that their story was only beginning. Evening settled over the ranch like a warm blanket. The sky was streaked with orange and purple, and the faint scent of hay and earth drifted through the open windows. Emily stood on the porch, holding Noah's hand, watching him run across the yard chasing the chickens. His laughter rang out, light and free, and it filled the spaces in her heart she hadn't realized were empty. For the first time in months, she felt at peace. Jacob emerged from the barn, wiping sweat from his brow. He leaned against the railing beside her, quiet but present. Neither spoke at first. Words felt unnecessary. The rhythm of the ranch, the soft sounds of animals settling in for the night, and the distant call of a hawk made silence feel comfortable, not awkward. "You've done well here," Jacob finally said, his voice low, almost hesitant. Nose smiling again. "That garden, it's thriving." Emily smiled, a mixture of gratitude and relief. "I never thought I'd see him laugh like this again," she admitted. "Or feel safe myself." Jacob nodded, looking out over the rolling fields. "You've given as much to this place as I have," he said softly. "More, maybe. You brought life back into it, into us." Emily's eyes met his. For a moment, neither needed to explain the unspoken bond that had grown between them in such a short time. It wasn't just about shelter or food anymore. It was about trust, hope, and the fragile beauty of starting over. Noah ran back to them, panting and smiling, clutching a small wildflower he had picked. He pressed it into Emily's hand. "For you, Mama," he said proudly. Emily knelt to hug him tightly, feeling the warmth of family wrap around her. Jacob crouched beside them, resting a hand on Noah's shoulder. "You belong here," he said simply. "All of you." Tears brimmed in Emily's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, though the words felt too small for everything he had done. Not just for feeding them, or giving them shelter, but for showing them kindness without expectation. For giving them dignity when she had thought it was gone. The sky darkened, stars beginning to appear one by one. Jacob lit a lantern on the porch, casting a soft glow over the three of them. Noah yawned, leaning against Emily. She wrapped her arm around him and looked up at Jacob, who stood quietly watching the sunset. "This place, it feels like home," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. "Not just for us, but for me too." Jacob smiled, a gentle, unguarded smile. "Then stay," he said. "No need to run anymore. You've earned this. We've earned this. Together." And in that quiet, golden evening, Emily understood the truth of his words. They were more than strangers bound by circumstance. They were a family, forged through hardship and kindness, finding strength and love in each other. As the stars shone above the Texas ranch, Emily held Noah close and let herself hope again. This was the beginning of a new life, a life where hunger, fear, and loneliness no longer ruled. A life full of laughter, trust, and the simple, profound warmth of home.